Hi, it's David, and welcome to DOMA's live feed. Today's presentation. We're going to be Leather 101, and we've got a lot of inquiries and questions about leather on an ongoing basis, and we thought it'd be a great opportunity to give you a brief overview and education about all the different things you want to know about leather and we're afraid to ask. Just to let you know, before we get started, is that, per our COVID-19 business operation plan, there is still opportunities to engage with us. We're here at the St. Pete showroom during office hours, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday between the hours of 10 to 2. During those times, if you want to make an appointment to come in, and you follow all the CDC requirements in order to do so. In addition, you can email us at domahomefurnishings.com, or you can also engage with one of our designers by going to our design plan options on our webpage at domahomefurnishings.com. So I encourage you to try any of those efforts. Currently, we're here again in the St. Pete showroom. I'm sitting on a beautiful Bracci sectional, and we are going to start with some basics on leather. So a lot of you always ask us questions, what are the differences, and how is pricing of leather actually determined, and so forth. And we're going to try to answer all those questions. And if you have a question, please DM us during the presentation, and we'll be sure to ask them. In advance of this presentation, we had asked all of you to, if you had a specific question, to email us in advance so we can make sure I address them. And I have a few of those here today, and I'll make sure I incorporate those in our plan. So, first things first, let's talk about leather. Obviously, all the leather comes from cows that are sourced after food production, so nothing is farmed as a result of the leather. All of these hides are typically sourced out of either the more arid tropical climates to the more cooler tempered climates. And by doing so, that could affect the thickness and Blue's chiming in here.
Yes.
That can affect the thickness and suppleness of the hides and how they are tanned. So we'll start firstly with understanding exactly the tanning process. There are several. So it's either a chromium tanning process or a vegetable dye. Most of the leather you see on the market today is all chromium based, and that's a salt aniline dye process in which breaks down the pigments and prepares the hides for dyeing. The vegetable dye process is a little more labor intensive and really popular when doing clothing and so forth, but when it comes to furniture and upholstery, there's one major manufacturer out there called Elmo, which a lot of the upholsterers now use if you're looking for a vegetable dye product, and that's what these samples here represent. In the vegetable dye process, it's much more labor intensive, but you get a high concentration of color in the process. The vegetable dyes actually comes from plant-based materials. Often, it's not uncommon, oak bark is used in order to give the level of color and the non-chemical based dyeing process. And some people, if you're hypoallergenic or sensitive to chemicals, a lot of people will source Elmo dyed leathers as an option for them in their upholstery. And that is an option only supplied by certain manufacturers. More traditional dyeing processes, like I said, would be the chromium process, and all of these leathers would represent that. You're going to have varying grades of leather, and every grading system will vary from manufacturer to manufacturer. Some of them use letters, some use numbers. Typically it's a low to high. And there is no correlation between the durability of the leather to the price of the leather. It's really about the grading system is more in line with a pricing structure that's involved in that particular hide and what's involved in tanning it and getting it to market. So it's more reflective of that. What you need to concentrate on when looking at leathers is, and what's right for your environment and your lifestyle, is the durability or the feel of it, and as such, what we're going to do is look at the varying differences. At Doma, we carry only full top grain hides. We do not use what is called splits, regenerates, or bycast. You often see some of these at bigger box stores that affords them the opportunity to provide you a product at a lesser price. But when you're buying a quality product that is all leather, you want to make sure that you look for a full aniline dyed leather. And and what that means is that the leather is actually dyed completely through. It's not a surface dye. So if you were to look at a sample in any showroom, whether it's us or somewhere else, if you were to turn over any of the samples, the back of the leather should be the same color as the front. So when you look at any of these, you'll notice that all of them are completely dyed through. If you were looking at a lesser expensive dyeing leather or a synthetic, it would be the color on the front and typically a white or off-white on the back. And what does that mean to you? Well, if, God forbid, there's any damage to the leather on the surface in your home, you cut it by accident, or there's an abrasion or a pull, that white color will show through. And it doesn't make it easy to repair when it's just a surface dye. If by chance you were required to do a repair on a full aniline dyed leather, it becomes much easier to do so. But until that time, at least it would be mitigated and you wouldn't see the cuts or the defect, whatever damage was done to it, because the bottom would be the same as the top. The other varying difference, you can also do what they call a semi-aniline, which is a protectant that's actually done in the dyeing process. So when you're looking at for your home, most of the mid-grade leathers that you find, and most of ours are done in a mid-grade leather, in a semi-aniline, full grain hides, they're going to be the most protected. So it's family friendly, easy care, soft to the touch, and for most environments, that is the most desirable. You're also going to find probably the largest collection or selection of color in that category. So I would always start by looking at those as an option. In the buffing or tanning process, you'll also see some variables, from anything from a thicker or oftentimes called a bullhide, where you get this heavy graining process, like what you see here, to something smoother, which is more stretched and supple to the touch. It's more along the lines of personal preference and what you would like to have. Often in the thicker hides, you'll find that these tend to hold up on stretching a little more. So ideal for when you're looking at motion sofas or things that have the ability for movement, because they'll hold their shape even better than some of your thinner hides. The next thing we'll talk about is when you're looking at selecting your leathers, is that you want to decide whether or not if a wax leather might be an option for you. A wax leather, often you see here, you'll notice these have a waxed, or sometimes they're called pull-up on them, and these are great if you like that effect. The marring or the scar that you put on the leather will typically rub about 90% out, but it does add to the patina and the look and durability of the piece over time. Ideal on those old leather worn chairs, or what you would see like in an old bomber jacket. Popular right now, they're making a resurgence in a lot of the designs, but it takes the right piece for that to be ideal for your design. So again, when you're looking at any of these leathers or when you're selecting your piece, consider full aniline dyed top grain leather. If you want to be more cost sensitive, you can look for opportunities to do leather everywhere you sit, and then on the backs or sides, some manufacturers will offer either a vinyl match where they can, or they'll do what they call splits, which are mirrored pieces of leather that are sewn together in a way that you can't tell, but are lesser grade, and put along the back and dyed to match. And they will obviously, because of the sensitivity cost, it will help bring the cost of your piece down. Not all manufacturers supply that as an option. We have a few here at Doma that will. We typically don't show it that way, but ask if you're interested about doing splits on the back, and we can point out to some manufacturers that will provide that as an option for you. One of the questions that we did receive in advance was, what leather would you suggest if you have a dog or a cat, or if that is pet friendly? And we get this question all the time from customers in the showroom. And I will tell you that leather furniture, as a rule, will outlast, generally the industry says, 4 to 1 over upholstery on a time frame basis because of how durable it is. But it does require some maintenance, and we'll talk about that. When it comes to pet friendly, then I will say that leather is very pet friendly. And if you get something like I referred to as a semi-aniline dyed leather that has a protectant dyed through it, and that is dyed completely through, that way if their nails tend to scratch on it, it'll help protect it. And if there's any major flaw or damage to it that requires a repair, it's easily taken care of. And we have great leather experts that we can help refer to you if that was ever the case, that can do a repair on a leather piece and you never know it was ever damaged. But I would do a semi-aniline dyed leather, and feel free to not worry about the damage that your animals may do. As far as the care and maintenance, like anything, leather requires some maintenance. If you want it to last as long as it can and get as much life out of it, we always suggest that for everyday cleaning, especially on those heavy traffic areas, on the arms of the head, every soap or Dove in a lather in a rag, and then just clean those areas, and then go back over them with a leather cleaner and a conditioner. You should also probably do that maybe at least 4 times a year is what I usually tell my clients. And if it's exposed to sun, then you might want to do the conditioner a little more. Because what happens is, if leather dries out, then it's going to look to take the oils and emollients out of you when you're sitting on it to try to moisturize it. And that's what you don't want to do, because then the chemicals from you will ultimately change or discolor the color of the leather. So if you've ever seen a chair or an arm of a chair, or even in your own car seats, where the color is the leather's become discolored because of your arms, hair, or head, often because of the chemicals in your hair, then that is a result of the leather trying to pull the moisture and the conditioners out from you. So keep it well conditioned and cleaned, and it will last you a lifetime. So that's sort of 101. We also supply products here at Doma, so feel free to stop by and pick up any leather cleaner and conditioners if you so choose. One other thing we wanted to add in today's education is a little something about motion sofas and leather motion, because about 90% of all motion sofas are ordered in leather, and it is considered the fastest growing category in leather. And we thought, since we have an offering here at Doma, we take a second to talk about some of the things that you can look for when buying your motion leather sofa. So we'll walk around to the area of our showroom that has some motion sofas. So I can point out a few. The first thing to note is that there are two basic differences or offerings in motion sofa. There is the recliner, which the motion or the mechanism actually draws back from the frame, and you'll need at least, on average, 11 to 16 inches of space behind the sofa for the clearance of the back and headrest. Or you can look to purchase what they call an incliner, or some people know them as wall savers or huggers or space savers. And those have a mechanism that actually pulls forward and out into the room, leaving the back flush against the wall. Either one of those two are your two typical mechanism choices. Then you're going to have options when you're looking at basic frames, like for instance this one that we carry from Pinnacle that has separate controls. So you can either get a dual control that operates the footrest and the headrest separately, or you could do an all-in-one control, which we also carry, which is one button will do the footrest first and then it'll recline the headrest. Typically there's a price difference. The more options you have, the prices tend to jump up. Also, when we're talking about leather, my advice to you when looking at leather for a motion sofa, I would look at the mid-grade leathers or higher as your options. The lesser expensive or the thinner hides tend to stretch and puddle over time as the continued movement happens. So as a general rule, I always say to people, go with a thicker hide if you can, if it makes sense, because it'll provide less stretching and puddling over time. Currently, we sell motion sofas from Jamar, American Leather, Eckernes, Pinnacle and the like, and Barachi. As a little incentive, any of our leather products, including motion, if you have any interest in them or you need additional pricing, we're going to provide 15% off all of it through the next 2 weeks. So if you have an interest in any of the leather products that we carry, please let us know. And as a part of the Facebook Live, we'll make sure that we honor that and get you a great deal. So send us information for your room settings. You can send us dimensions, and we'll do a design for you. And then if you wanted to set up an appointment in the showroom, we can do that too. That concludes our Facebook Live today. I wanted to give a shout out to all first responders, people in our grocery stores, everybody that's helping us get through this. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And look forward to our next Facebook Live post, what we'll be doing on Monday. And we'll have Jay Carl, one of our designers and lighting expert, talk to you about lighting and the difference between incandescent and LED and everything else in between. So thank you again for joining us. And again, email us for any questions that you might have, and we'll see you next time.